electric vehicle into a house, your energy bill is going to go up about 50%. So 2 electric vehicles, which is possible over the next decade, you're seeing a 100% increase in your house energy usage. But actually it's worse than that if it's uncontrolled. If you think about peaks, what you do as a standard behaviour, you get home from work, you plug your electric vehicle in, you turn all your lights on, you turn the oven on. The peak is really the difficulty. But electric vehicles are a very different energy source. They've got what I call energy inertia. You can charge a vehicle for a short period of time, turn it off, start it up again. You know, it's a bit like an air conditioning unit in that respect. It doesn't need a constant supply of energy. Your shower has got no electrical inertia. If you turn that off, you notice immediately the effect of you reducing the power to that device. So we haven't typically in our house had a device which has got energy inertia before, and that's why this is opening up something very interesting. I'm not an enormous believer in the vehicle to grid notion, which is where energy is coming back out of your electric vehicle into your house. Technically feasible, but I'll sort of debate with you the commerciality of whether that's real or not. But I do think we've got a very big opportunity to use electric vehicles as a switchable load to enable us to balance in 3 areas. National level, so from a generation perspective, how do electric vehicles help us balance the national grid? And the key example there is your advert break in Coronation Street. Everyone goes and turns their kettle on. That's the exact moment we can pause electric vehicles for 3 minutes to mean that we don't have to turn on short-term generation. We can increase the percentage of our country which is using base generation as opposed to very high carbon rapid spinning reserve type generation. The next one is the distribution networks. The thing that probably sort of been working with electric vehicles, I guess, for 4 years has amazed me more than anything else is actually how little the distribution network operators understand the status of the load across their distribution network. But clearly, if we've got individual control of electric vehicles, we can have a very big effect on how we control individual parts of the distribution network. And the final one is in your own house. Put some numbers on that again. Your typical house has got 100 amp fuse going in. 3 key devices in your house will use all of that. Your electric vehicle, your shower and your oven, that's your full house capacity. And in the example I've just given you of coming home, you can easily see a real world situation where you're using 100% of your house's incoming energy capacity. And in that situation, which one are you quite happy to have paused? Always your electric vehicle. So I really think that the reason I'm here is to talk to you more about the smart grid side of smart cities, and I've hopefully just given you there 2 or 3 real world examples of how electric vehicles fit into that. So pepper with questions, but don't be surprised if I come at it from a slightly UV angle.
Chris. Hi, thank you, Charles, and hello. So from an IBM perspective, the global answer is there's been approximately 3,000 rising on a daily basis, smarter city type engagements, conversations, trials, demonstrations, value assessments. Do I know all of them? No. I'm trying to. I know the website to go and look at them. From a UK perspective, however, pretty plugged into what's going on, and I think that in a number of areas, I would say that from a city's perspective, each city and each space, and I don't really necessarily like talking about cities, I like to talk about regions, districts, realms, spaces, because that's different to where you live and where you're interacting. I think there's 4 common areas where you have differences being trying to be made, and that is maybe in the sustainable resources arena. So that could be smart buildings, buildings that talk to each other, buildings that have environmental controls. You have environmental management and this desire to actually start understanding how linkages to poor air quality could have some impact on the industrial process that's driving that poor air quality. So if you want to improve the air you breathe, you need to drive some event. And it was interesting that we were talking just beforehand, you was going, why do we have technology for technology's sake? I totally agree. We've got to understand what is the answer. So again, looking at the whole environmental piece, you'd say if there's a flood about to occur, the smart thing would be to either evacuate the people before it happens, or put up the flood defences just in time. So there's an example that's been built in Singapore where there is a major through-rate tunnel that's also a flood escape route for water. You've got 30 minutes between the rain hitting the hills and removing all of those cars from that tunnel. Luckily, it only takes about 5 minutes to remove the cars. You've got a 25-minute cap. But knowing when the rain falls to give yourself an extended time is a smart thing to do. And then you're using that same infrastructure to have multiple different roles. That's a smart use of capital investment. And actually, the thing that it's solving is flood damage and flood deterioration. So that's a smart protection of risk and also the existing investment you've already done. So what I'm saying here is that you've got different things that are happening. They've got to have different types of benefit being accrued. The challenge in all of this, especially for investors, is if I put in a tenner, am I going to get the promised 100 back? Well, probably not. You'll probably get 60 back, and that freeloader will get another 10, and that person over there that may have helped will get 5, and that other person, even though they didn't have anything to do with it, is going to get 20, and they'll be very happy. So the question is how do you measure and how do you always ensure that the things that you're doing are right, providing good value answers that society will recognise? The answer's through information. It's no surprise that I didn't realise that IBM was in the middle, and I can't go, well, I'm cool that I work for them, really. But the point is, it's all about convergence, it's about collaboration, it's about partnership, it's about open information. It's not about being locked into rules. It's about embracing the change that is going to be led around you. And that change is the important thing. Because if we carry on as we're going, we're just going to fall off a cliff. You know, we've got to use this information for a reason. We've got to change how we live, how we behave, how we consume. And information is going to be it's often said, the fourth utility. So if you're an organisation that's sitting on a pile of information, my first request to you is pump it out and release it and see what happens. But be prepared for someone to actually go, there's some really cool stuff here, and react to it. Or look at your own information and look at the silos in your own industries and your own business areas, bash them together, see what occurs, and react to the change. Because if you only do the former, pushing it together, and don't react to the change, you kind of be left with where we are today. Because we need to be collaborative, we need to work with this open information, we need to make sure that the positive news that comes out of looking at some difference in approach can actually occur. It's that difference that the sustainable thing, the smart thing, and more importantly, it's an outcomes-based world that we're moving to. And those outcomes are based on a need to consume and devour rich information that we will enjoy. So, lots going on, very exciting space. Come on board.
Well, I'm on board, Chris. What I'd like to do is open up to questions from the floor. Can I ask people, when you're asking a question, could you give your name and your organisation? So who'd like to ask? We've got a question at the back there. I think the room's small enough, we don't need microphones, so but please speak up.
Thank you. It's Brian Kilkelly, World Cities Network. I'm curious to hear from the panel about where are the kind of obstacles to making progress faster. Because I think we'd all agree that this is all fantastic. We want to see smarter, we want to see more sustainable cities. But the reality on the ground surely is that actually these things are not happening at any kind of speed or scale that we'd like to see. And why is that? What can we do to overcome those challenges?
I'll kick off, and then perhaps if we go sort of this way. For me, one of the key obstacles is, it's great that we've got companies like IBM and PodPoint who are producing IT solutions, producing bits of technology, and that's we need that. We also need the regulatory systems and government, public sector input. So, if EV is going to take off, we need a lot more charging points all over the country. And if things like smart metering are going to take off, we need the public to be happy to have more information in a safe, secure way out there with the public sector. There have been issues in the public domain, in a sense. There have been real issues about in California and places about people not being happy that there was information about when they switch their lights on and off, and you can infer certain things from that kind of information. So it can be a touchy issue. And then you need also the consumer to be involved. You need changes in behaviour. You need people to be happy for their freezer to be turned off at 3 times and come on in the middle of the night. You need consumers to get out of their petrol cars into their electric vehicles. You need utilities to stop investing in dumb networks, if I can call them that, and invest in smart grids. So it's getting all of these pieces to come together in a consistent, coordinated way, which for me is the big thing that's holding us back. And I think having people who are willing, like Chris perhaps in IBM, like Boris for London, to stand up and say, I want to take a lead. I want to see lots of charging points. I want to see things like the congestion charge, things like Boris's bikes, new initiatives, and make them happen and drive things forward. That for me is the solution. That's my 2 pence worth.
For me, I believe that it really comes down to the kind of infrastructure that you have in the city. When we did a lot of analysis across cities, there are some that have progressed much more. There were much forward-thinking cities, and some that hadn't progressed as much. And the reason for that is that some cities simply lack the infrastructure to be able to connect to different sectors of the city itself. And for that to happen, city authorities need to first of all lay the basic layout. For example, if you want to have that level in terms of vision of what a smart city can do, or being able to connect different silos of information, you would need the basic connectivity in terms of broadband, in terms of the bandwidth that can, in terms of what level of data can be transmitted in that. And for that, you need to have a specific sophistication of infrastructure that may not be available, say, in some tier 2 or tier 3 cities in Africa or in India or in Latin America. And the reason some cities have done extremely well is because they have had that thinking much way in advance to first of all lay that network and slowly begin to upgrade that to a certain level wherein a deployment of a smart technology or a charging infrastructure or any other sort of smart initiatives within the parameters becomes easy, eventual, and simply a matter of that city evolving to a smart one. So I think that is definitely a reason for why some cities are doing very well and some cities are not. Additionally, it is also the proactiveness of city authorities. Yes, you want your city to be smart. You have a particular vision, you have a particular aim, but you need initiatives and policies that in a very phased manner take you towards that goal. Now, Copenhagen, for example, is set to become a carbon neutral city, and they have nearly 7 to 8 sort of initiatives across different regions of the economy, and they have very specific targets as to what they're going to do to achieve that goal within that particular time frame. So you need 2 things: A, infrastructure to be able to do it; B, the relevant stakeholders and city authorities to have that initiative and proactiveness to achieve that vision.
Yeah, I kind of support both your points, and I'd sum up why in the UK is it not happening faster. It's down to public procurement and this manic focus on overdue. We've lost the plot. We're buying on price, not buying on value. We need to look at a change in how you procure things for the full life cycle cost of that thing that you're buying. We need to look at different ways of using rich information coming from a smarter thing, whatever that thing may be, to prove that it's got a life cycle and it's behaving itself as the investor has told it would. If we build up trust on that new information, that will give different investment vehicles, because you can then mortgage that new smart thing. It might not necessarily be made of bricks and mortar, but it will be a thing that's tangible and mortgageable, and you should be able to raise immediate investment against that and then pay back over a period of time. And then the final point, I think, is that being able to, as a leader, be a political business leader, being able to handle the transfer of benefits from one investment over a whole bunch of others that will accrue. If you are sitting at the top and you can say, yeah, I can handle that transfer either by a pat on the back or here's an extra bonus, or by recognising, yes, you have given me that benefit, then you're in a better place. We don't, as a society, tend to recognise those invisible transfers. So we need to again, recognise different informational outcomes, different measures that lead to, yes, I've achieved and I'm getting value from the thing that I'm using or the thing that I've just consumed. Bring those things together and you'll start to see a greater acceleration in things that get smart. But on the other hand, where we come from to where we are now, well, we are going really fast. So maybe we just need to calm down and just realise that we're at the start of a journey that is going to take decades to unravel. This isn't quick buck territory. This is, we are learning, we'll then change, we'll then learn, and we'll change. Oh, by the way, we're going to do it again, and again, and again, and again. So this is an iterative, long-term journey. So, as I said, come on board, it's a fun ride.
Thank you, Chris. Yes.
I think you guys have summarised it nicely. I think from a technical perspective, I see a lack of understanding of performance. I was having an interesting discussion with David from Oxford Innovations, who's here today, and I think it's interesting to invest in something which is tangible, like bricks and mortar, as you termed it, Chris. It is slightly different to invest in something which is to do with performance, because you're essentially trying to put a price on convenience. Why is the emphasis there on smart grids and gathering information? Well, because we don't know how poor or how well we are now as a society or as an asset base, let's put it in your terminology. So in order to measure improvement of that, from a baseline to an efficient level, you need to gather lots of data. Unless we gather that data, somebody needs to fund that as well, we cannot measure what we're saving, at least not proactively. And that is why I think from an energy perspective, for example, from the energy sector, I think, again, energy performance contracts are a big thing in the US and China as well as in some areas in Europe. But I think in the UK they failed to kick off because people don't understand the importance of investing in a savings-driven opportunity. It's very different to either make, from an investor's perspective, you guys get it, yes, but I think from an end client developer's perspective, that's why the Green Deal isn't taking off, because the common man doesn't understand how is he essentially paying for his newly replaced natural gas-fired boilers. So, I think it's an understanding. I think we have to. There's also an impetus for us to educate the industry as a whole. I'll be short and brief on that.
I think I'd see it in a very capitalist manner. You've got to find commercial opportunity in order to make this happen quickly. Visionaries start you on your journey. Visionaries get electric vehicles going a bit. Boris says, let's do this, let's get charging infrastructure in, but it will all die unless there's a genuine economic reason why this is better than what we used to have. So I'm really strongly of the belief that you need entrepreneurs in there inventing interesting business models. This technology's sake, I don't believe in. This new technology is expensive, so we've got to rapidly convert that into the man on the street. How does he benefit from this? And normally, we all think that we're, probably some of the more ecological thinking people in the country, but you'll only buy the lower carbon solution at the same price as the higher carbon solution if the price parity is there. Always comes back to an economic decision. So we all want to have a low emission this and a low carbon that and all the other, but very few people will put their hand in the pocket to do it. So we've got to find how we make this stuff cheaper, have an economic benefit to the end user, and that's how you get into mass market adoption. That's how you get private sector money coming in to actually fund these things.
Okay, there's a gentleman here who is keen to ask a question. And please feel free to direct it to a particular if you wish.
David Shipworth, UCI Energy Institute. By way of context, I've done quite a bit of consulting work with the ECOM, the Smart Metering Program, and Energy Technology Institute on smart systems and heat. The question, that last point of Eric's was a perfect segue. What is the customer value proposition? The one thing we know in the UK is that participation in smart energy systems is going to be opt-in. So we're going to need to walk into households and say, you want to do this for the following reason. It's not going to be because it's going to shave 10% off your bills. Basically, we know that people, by and large, do not act economically rationally around energy use in homes now. So there's no reason to believe they're all of a sudden going to do so. So we need to find something that we can present to them which excites them enough to choose to engage. And I think partly that's what will make the system take off. So I was going to ask the panel, what is it that you can walk into a home and say, this is so exciting that you're going to opt into a smart energy system?
Cash. Totally agree. So the reason I say that is Eco Island, which IBM was involved with in the Isle of Wight. Number of findings from the Chale project, which were incredibly interesting. One, giving people better information, great, sticky for about 2 weeks. Comparing information with your neighbours really embeds. We like being compared with the Joneses, even though we don't. But creating that groupthink behaviour is really important. Secondly, by providing someone who pays the bill with real money in their pocket on a regular basis, so they can then go and spend that cash on the things that they want. So not tokens, not vouchers, not a discount. Here is the money from that feed-in tariff going into your pocket, and here's 15 quid for that week's. Brilliant. 15 quid, thanks very much.
Yeah, but it's not 15 quid, is it? That's the problem. If it was 15 quid, that would be a no-brainer. It's more like 20, 30 pounds a year saving.
Well, no, so I think I disagree with you on the number. We won't get into a debate as to what it is, but we've also got to understand that it's cost takeout. Because the Eco Island is not just about feed-in tariff, it's about collective switching, it's about demand management, it's also about providing that community with the ability to earn real cash by providing back into the national grid the energy that they've created on their PVs, on their homes. So you've got, I'm not using money in energy, I'm getting some money back from energy, be it on real cash, and if you have ownership of the feed-in tariff, you get that as well. And the other point, from a community perspective, is that because people are now more in tune with what they're doing with their energy, it had some great effects. And the Chale project is a social housing area. So they had high rent arrears, or the average amount of rent arrears. Rent arrears have disappeared. People are now paying the rent on time. They have no fuel poverty because their fuel is pretty much virtually for free for most of the year around. And finally, they've now got more community engagement, which has increased things like the truancy, or decreased the truancy rate. Improved the public realm because people are now more involved, so they started in the allotment. Now, none of those things are on the business case, but they make the place a better, smarter, more encouraging place to live in. So I think those are the incentives, but the primary one starts with cash.
I think there's lots more points we could make. There's a couple more questioners, and we've probably got only about 5 or 10 minutes more. So a couple quick questions from this lady.
My name is Yichin Chen from Sustainable Innovation Lab. I want to know from the audience or panel is what's the finance model for the sustainable smart city on the city level, because there's a block. The key question is how we scale up. What's the finance model for the big investor willing to put money into scale up? One of the reasons I asked the question is I've been recently involved with European Commission's and China's Eco-City long-term cooperation project for 4 years. They are going, in China alone, they are going to build up 200 eco-cities in the next few years. So they want to find out the best investment strategy for investment to the green city. So I would like to know.
China, do you want to respond?
The answer to that is that there's no answer. You have to understand the model that works with the city authorities, the sort of system that goes in for deploying a certain project within the city. Like I mentioned in my presentation, there can be different variants, there can be different business models, there can be different ways in which you can engage to deploy a certain infrastructure or certain particular project or certain initiative within the city, be it laying or charging infrastructure or feeding in data analytics within the grid to give you some sort of information, to give you in sort of predictive analytics to forecast your demand. So there are different types of ways you can get involved, the different levels of and sectors that you can get involved. But I think it really comes down in certain regions. Some city authorities do have certain relationships with certain companies in deploying a certain infrastructure, and they do have certain models themselves, and you need to work with those models that the city authorities have already working with, be it a build, operate and manage, or be it build, operate and transfer, or even partnering with a local company within the city just to make that work. So that was my answer, because it really differs. The cultural differences, the way city authorities approach projects are completely different in different regions.
We have a question over here.
Chris Bird from Qualcomm. I have a question regarding if you take Beijing with the really poor air quality that they have at the moment, and there's been research from the King's College here in London showing the health effects of air pollution and what it does for a person's shortened life and so forth, and asthma and so forth. And is there a way to monetize those artifacts of pollution and use that as part of the business case to cleaner vehicles or cleaner power plants, or is that unrealistic to imagine that might happen?
Let me respond if anybody else wants to join in. It's interesting, I've been talking to a number of cities in the UK who want to do something about fuel poverty and the costs it imposes on people who are not, particularly older people, who are not heating their homes adequately during the winter. And what is happening in this area is the local NHS is saying, if we have a cold winter, we're going to have to spend a lot of money on treating and providing drugs and beds for all people who get pneumonia and end up in our hospitals. It's more effective for us, we'll save money, if we actually invest in improving their homes, improving the insulation, giving them better boilers, doing a whole range of energy efficiency things, so those people can afford to heat their homes adequately, they don't get pneumonia, they don't end up in the hospital with expensive treatments and expensive drugs. So I think for me that's a model that can work. It's quite difficult to make it work, but it should be, it's an economically rational response. It's the kind of thing that we should be doing more of.
I think EV is heavily involved in air quality, but I think it's very difficult to make the instant jump from the individual to the city's air quality. How much will I pay to improve London's air quality? Not at all is generally the answer you'll get back from the people. But you can make a complex business model. Yes, you reduce your healthcare costs if you reduce the number of issues from air quality. But I think what you have to do to make that into a commercial model is include that as one of 20 parts of your commercial model. That on its own is unlikely to help us drive either electric vehicle or smart grid. It might be a fringe benefit with 19 other things that we want to do, but I would find it very difficult to find pound value from the individual buyer to effect on air quality. I think we really pull lots of things together to, and that is just one of them.
In 2015, the EU will potentially fine city or regions within defined air corridors if they use certain air pollution mixes. So the interesting thing is now you have a financial imperative that says I've got to spend money, otherwise I get fined. Now in some spaces, because it doesn't happen very often, I'll pay the fine. Fine. Others, actually I need to do something about it.
And this gentleman at the front.
Henry Whittlesey from PNBC. I don't see it the barriers to smart city being a technology issue. The technology is there, it's how it's applied. And how it's applied is driven by how you want to operate because it's outcomes you're trying to achieve. What I'm curious about is, has any of the panels seen any cities really radically looking at changing the way they operate a city? Talk about real-time optimization, real-time operation, but has any city really embarked on that journey?
My experience in the UK, not yet, but they are now realising that they need to. There's some interesting contracts going out to tender now for spaces where you give your sort of the build to operate model, and you incentivise your supplier to only have a payment if certain conditions are met, but on a whole bunch of measures. So they are incentivised to provide the service and invest in that space right from the very start. And those type of contracts will see more outcomes driven, and you'll see the changes in how your city works, which should lead to at least contained council tax rather than growing council tax, because all the input costs are rising. That's the thing we can't forget. Just because IT might be going down, and how you organise yourself, your energy costs are going up remarkably, and they will continue to go up. And you know, in an age of potentially high inflation, some of the resource costs as well are going to start going up. So don't think of the world as getting lower costs, just think of it how can you maintain where it is at the moment.
Okay, thank you all. Closing remarks, John Watchers of Clark's Legal is going to say a few words. Just while John stands up, he's a partner in the commercial and corporate group there, and his clients include Carillion, Balfour Beatty, and the University of Reading. John.
Thank you, Charles. Thanks a lot. Just some very brief remarks. On behalf of Forward Investment Network and Clark's Legal, we're very happy to support this event because in Forward Investment Network we act as an investment hub for entrepreneurs, businesses and investors in the high-tech sector, and low-carbon sustainable technology companies are a large part of that. I mean, I was struck by a couple of things that came along during the presentation. The international dimension, actually our channel, your slide where there was no Latin American or African countries predicted to be smart cities by 2025. That was interesting. It woke one or two people up in the audience, I noticed. And it's also interesting because we are going to be the UK hub of something called the Commonwealth Environmental Investment Platform. There's some brief literature here. That's something we've been instrumental in. That's an investment hub, very similar to Fin, but solely looking at low carbon sustained growth. And I suppose being, not trying to pat ourselves on the back, if there's no countries in Africa predicted to be smart cities by 2025, it's probably not overdue that we're taking part of that initiative. There are a number of African countries in Canada and Isle of Man and lots of other Commonwealth countries involved in that. So that's obviously a very important international dimension. I also couldn't help avoid the feeling that we're talking about what are the barriers to the take-up for smart cities. We talked about cash incentives, etc. I agree there's some big opportunities for private business, but I couldn't help thinking that it's one of those areas where progress may well be delayed because governments across the world currently see a strapped for cash. So always, if you try and rely on the private sector, I'm afraid that there were delays. I don't want to be too pessimistic because I have read literature recently that I think in 2012 the smart grid M&A market doubled compared to 2011. I think that's partly due to one or two mega deals. So there's maybe some hope that the private sector will step in because they recognise opportunities. Obviously, I think just investment in the infrastructure, I'm afraid I can't get beyond thinking that if governments around the world, other than China, don't play their part, it's going to be slightly delayed. And given climate change issues, which have really dropped down the agenda recently, I really hope it's not going to be decades and decades before smart cities really start to make a big impact. But I understand that it's a long journey. I take your point. Finally, before we hopefully as many of you as possible can go next door, we can carry on some of the discussion and polemics. I'd like to thank obviously the host, Charles and Clark Thornton, for hosting the event in your great London offices. That's very good. A big thank you to Clive Ford and Rushlight for helping put on the event as well, as always. Also to the speakers and panelists, thank you for your contributions, particularly the controversial ones. And also my colleagues on Fin, Zach and Jennifer, thank you very much for putting on the event on the day, and I think Charles and your colleagues as well. So thank you very much, and I hope as many of you as possible can stay behind and we can go next door, I think, for drinks and candles.
The same room where we had tea and coffee.